The Sciforror Film Podcast. Hello and welcome to another extra episode of the Sciforror Film Podcast. I'm Andy Walker, and in this episode I am joined by Gavin Rothery. Hello, Gavin.
Hi. Hello, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you. Now, when I looked you up online, it says you're a screenwriter, director, concept artist, and designer. But when I looked at the films you're involved in, a lot of the time you come up listed as doing VFX and animation. So what would you class yourself as?
Human being. I don't know. Such a strange career that takes me all over the place. I've done all kinds of things. I've always been someone who just kind of gets involved in things, and I found that usually when I'm on a thing, it sort of spreads outwards into other things.
Right.
So, you know, who likes labels, right? Who wants to put a label on yourself and say you only do one thing? I'm just very useful. And now that I'm doing my own sort of generating my own projects, I'm very useful to myself. And, you know, I've always believed that at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, no matter who you are and what you're doing in life, if there's one person you should be able to rely on at the end of the day, it's yourself.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So the question I normally ask everybody to start off with is, how did you get involved in the world of films, and more specifically, how did you get involved in doing sci-fi and horror films?
Okay, right. So I'll try and keep these brief. I can always elaborate if you like, if you want to drill in on anything. But long story short, I have a dual career. So I work in films and I also work in games, and I have done like my whole career basically. So originally I was a comic artist, then I got into games, and then that got me into films. So the thing that specifically got me into films was meeting my old chum Duncan Jones when I was working at a games company, which is long gone now, but they were called Elixir Studios. Curiously enough, that studio was set up by a chap called Demis Hassabis, who has since gone on to create DeepMind for Google. Although back then we were all just like a bunch of young guys kind of, you know, scrappily trying to get games made in Camden back then. But I was on the art team, and Duncan was brought in as a writer, and we just became friends. It turns out he was at film school, the London Film School, I believe it was, the London International Film School. Forget the exact name of it. There's the big London Film School in Covent Garden. He was at that, and they had a peculiar, well, it felt peculiar to me because my degree, like most degrees, is you're at uni, you do your degree, you finish, you have all your final like exams, shows, dissertations, whatever, and then you're out and you get your degree, or not as the case might be, and you're out. Whereas Duncan's course was quite different, right? Because he was at the film school. The way their course worked was you went along, did all your lectures, whatnot, followed the course for, you know, the 3 years, whatever. And then at the end of that, to graduate, you had to deliver a short film. But the way the course was structured, you could take as long as you liked to deliver your short film. So a lot of people just wrapped up the coursework, left, and kind of started to move on with their life. But technically, they hadn't graduated until they delivered a short film. And so Duncan was in this kind of in-between period where he'd finished film school, but he hadn't delivered his short film because he wanted to do something interesting and cool. And so it turns out, you know, we both just always had a big love of sci-fi, and he wanted to get into sci-fi stuff, but he was like, you know, a director and a writer. And my take on it all was I was an ex-comic artist working in film. So I had illustration and graphic design backgrounds. My degree was illustration graphic design. So I've always been a drawer. And then when I got into the games industry, 3D was like the biggest gift ever because my whole thing, like when I was at uni, my first ever student loan, I spent all of that on an airbrush. And what I wanted to be able to do was to create photorealistic artwork. That was always my goal.
Right.
So when I started getting into computers, it was like, oh, this is just where I want to be. Like, this is it. This is how you do that. And so back in the day, this was like, like very late 90s, early 90s when this was going on. Back then we're looking at PS1 moving over to PS2 era graphics. And so everything's really, you're looking at creating characters out of like a few hundred triangular polygons. It's a completely different world where we are now. There's no normal maps, anything like that. Everything was so different back then. And so what I found as an artist, I was quite frustrated because I'd got access to this software and, I got my computer at home, I got my computer at work. All the time I'm just doing 3D art. And the tools are getting better and better. But I just didn't need it for work. I felt like I was kind of swimming in the shallow ends of the pool. And so I'd do all of that work during the day on the games. And at night, I'd go home and I'd get all the toy box out and start doing my own. And that basically got me into doing my own VFX work, just playing. And then pretty soon after I met Duncan, his flatmate moved back to America. And so he moved in with me because I had a room in the house that I was in at the time. So we ended up living together for like 10 years. And that was when it all really clicked. And he was like, right, I'm doing a short film. I was like, cool, I'll design some stuff. I'll make some props. I'll do some VFX. And this is like scrappy early days stuff. And so we just started working on everything together. We did a short film, which was it's quite long for a short. It was like 25 odd minutes, maybe nearly 30 minutes. And it was a short film called Whistle.
Yep.
And that was all shot in and around our old house. I built loads of the props, did the VFX in it, just rolling up sleeves and getting things done. And we just started working on everything together. So he was a frustrated director at the time. And back then, one of the ways into the real way into the industry back then for most people was doing tiny budget music promos like pop videos. And it's kind of not really how it works these days because the industry has all changed. But back then, you're trying to get these like 2,000-3,000 quid early promos for like bands that like labels like Warp Records are like taking a shot on things like that. Yeah. So we were kind of swilling around trying to kind of get some traction doing that kind of stuff. And we just kept, and in the meantime, we just kept doing our own stuff. And it was funny because doing illustration, that naturally lends itself towards concept art, which is one of the things that I was also doing in the games industry. But when I joined the games industry, it was before we had the kind of specialization we've got now. So it was more like you're an artist, you can kind of, be used as an art resource. And one of the things that used to drive me crackers was when I started to get senior in art teams, one of the first things that I would do if I started a new job at a company would be to reorganize things so that I could learn what people's specialities were and I could use people appropriately. Because I was sick of, it's like, oh yeah, go and do a bunch of character rigging and animating. And it's like, I can do that, but we're doing a sci-fi game. I should really be designing these spaceships. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And the guy who's designing the spaceships is like, he's sat over there having a great time. And I'm looking at him just thinking, this isn't working out at all. It's like, you can use people to their strengths, So, look, it's like a lot of us, when you get working professionally, your future career path tends to be, a lot of it tends to be organized in your mind around things that happened early on in your career that maybe didn't go so well, or you saw people doing things badly, or something happened and there was an underachievement occurred or whatever. So you're trying to just figure out how that can not happen again. So yeah, so that was what got me in, with becoming friends with Duncan, and he always wanted to make a movie. That's why I was at film school. I wanted to be a film director, and we just started working together, and we were just trying to make movies. And after we had a couple of false starts, and eventually we made Moon. Which is something you can go and watch on streaming. Go treat yourself to a nice Blu-ray or a 4K disc. Yeah. Listen to all the fun commentaries and extras on there. He's one disc with a lot of extras, actually, including short film Whistle.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that first kind of got that brought you to my attention was Moon. And since then, you've gone on to do other things. You still be working in games and stuff, but
Yep.
you also gone on to do other films and things like that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
do you prefer doing games or working in films, or is it a kind of an equal?
Look, when I was in sixth form and going through art school, I worked at a power tool rental hire company, and I used to do scaffolding on building sites. I used to deliver plant to building sites and collect plant. I was a delivery driver, stroke scaffolder, stroke mild service guy. Um, so I've had all kinds of I've spent summer holidays stuffing envelopes, trying to get some money as a young'un. I've done all these things. So right now, I'm working on Star Citizen, which has been, I don't know if you know much about the games industry, but
Not a lot.
it's a huge game. It's done by a chap called Chris Roberts. He's like the big creative brain in the middle of it all. It's his baby, and it's basically a spiritual successor to Wing Commander, which is the old like 90s PC smash hit from back in the day, which also became a movie. Starring Mark Hamill, who's also the in Star Citizen. So there's a big cast of this. Talk about films or games. Like honestly, the stars like games now basically are films. Like the cast of the game that I'm working on, it's better than the cast of any movie I've ever worked on. I've got let's see who's on in Star Citizen. We've got Gary Oldman, Mark Strong. We've got Gillian Anderson. We've got there's so many people in it. We've got Henry Cavill in it. We've got Mark Hamill in it. Those are the two kind of big pilots. They're flying my ships in the game. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just got this stellar cast. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing that kind of inspired Chris in the first place, obviously Star Wars, like a lot of us, right? So, he's been friends with Mark Hamill for a long, long time now. There is a bit of crossover, funnily enough. Like Rona Mitra is in Star Citizen, and she's also in my movie archive. It's funny. It's funny how the universe kind of orders itself sometimes because this is like pure coincidence, like happenstance, basically. But
So
sometimes when you get working in the entertainment industry, it can be sometimes a little bit smaller than you might have thought.
yeah. So Archive, which was 2020, is that your first film?
Sorry, come again. That was my first writer director film. Yes, that whole film's basically my kind of brain transplanted onto the screen for the most part. Excuse me. Yeah, yep, it was. It came off the back of Moon. Like off the back of Moon, I was so heavily involved in Moon because the whole project, me and Duncan working together. But if you look up my credits on Moon on IMDb, there's all kinds of bits and pieces of things. Because to be honest, when we were doing Moon, it was like a student film. It was like a weird student film with Sam Rockwell in it. It was like a big student film with Sam Rockwell because at the core of it was me and Duncan, and we'd just been working as a great partnership the whole time. So we didn't have the delineation you get on a normal film set. And so I was just all over the place in meetings, briefing people, checking in on jobs, making sure things are getting done. And it caused quite a lot of confusion at first because a lot of those guys, like tradition, people that we were just meeting for the first time in the middle of the production, they didn't know who I was. They knew I wasn't the director. And I'm just kind of coming around telling everybody what's going on half the time. And it caused quite a lot of friction at first. And I understand now that that was my fault for me being somewhat naive about that whole process. But I kind of didn't give a shit. I was just getting stuff done. In my mind, I was just getting stuff done. And I was like, what's the problem with just getting stuff done? Really what the problem was me telling the DOP where to put lights.
Yeah.
Because I've designed them all in the set. The only reason why I'm doing that is because I designed a set, built it all in 3D, lit it all with stage accurate lights, used materials that matched the paints we were using. And I did something quite specific with it because there was a look we were going for. So I was bouncing the light. It wasn't like direct lights. And so I built these three big, we called them chimneys. They were just big shafts about kind of a meter square. There's three of them in the main corridor of the set. And they had like big, like 20K lights up there with like a bunch of diffusion at the bottom. And the idea was you never looked up there because if you did, it'd be like looking into the sun. but all the light comes down, bounces around. And we had some kind of like lights behind, some like recessed lights behind down the walls and stuff. But for the most part, that whole set was built with bounce light. And the whole point of that was some of the conversations I got into early on. One of the first meetings, the DP was a chap called Gary Shaw. It was like a lovely old friend of mine at Duncan's. It's like, love that guy. But I remember one of the first, he's also very plain speaking, like he'll tell you what's up. And one of the first meetings we had when I brought in my renders, they kind of looked like kind of grayish and kind of like mushroomy colors because the light was bounced. And then we were talking about getting things together, and Gary was on about bringing some other lights in behind the camera. And I was just saying, like, be careful with that because it'll flash it all out because it's all white. And straight away I was like, you can't have a white set. Can't do it. It's madness. And I was like, I already did. Like, these images that got spread out across the table on all his printouts. That's what this is. Like, this is all with real paint and real lights. And he'd not seen that before, and he was very cynical and didn't really believe that I was telling the truth. But fortunately, we pushed ahead with it and got it all done. But, you know, things like that create quite a bit of friction. Everyone's like, why are you talking? You're not the production designer. You're not the DP. You're not the guy painting the walls. Do you know what I mean? You're not the director. You're like, why? And I'm telling everyone, if they all do these things, we'll arrive at the look that we have on this thing that I printed out on the table, which is what I built on my computer. So it all worked out because me and Duncan were like really thick in the middle of it all, and it all worked out fine. But as far as having to make friends with everybody goes, it was really difficult. I mean, I came out of it great. It's like I made the end of the project, everyone was great. But at the beginning of the project, you know, I had so much diplomacy to do. And to be honest, the way my head was at the time, I was just all about getting the film made. So I wasn't my most patient then, because I was like, we're getting stuff done. We're working. What's the problem? Just getting stuff done. So I had to take a deep breath and get into a little bit more diplomacy than I would have originally intended on there. But it worked out fine, you know. And now I'm working as a director in my own right. None of this stuff's a problem. It's if anything, it makes it easy because it gives me a bit of an understanding of when I'm asking people to do things that might tread on other people's toes a little bit, which I kind of tend to do quite a bit just because I like to use people's strengths. So sometimes I'll have people doing things in other departments. It just gives me a bit more of an understanding of what I'm asking them to do, and I can smooth things out by talking to everyone ahead of time.
Yeah, I think the thing is sometimes people get a bit hung up with like demarcations of I am this, I have this position on this film, so therefore I am in charge of this. And if anybody else sort of like puts any sort of like ideas into that sort of area, they push back against it. But I think that's becoming less now. The more independent people are getting involved in filmmaking, in larger filmmaking, the more there is less of that going on. There's much more kind of much more of a blurring of the edges of what people are actually doing on a film set.
Yeah, I mean, I have like an idealistic pursuit that I try and keep in my head, and it's not entirely workable a lot of the time. But I try and base what I'm doing around having a nice day at work. Do you know what I mean? It's like I remember I had a conversation in a pub a long time ago with a really smart friend of mine that's got some really good banter on him. Shout out, Bull. Not sure where you are now. I went off to work for Beretta in America, and I've heard from him for quite a while. I remember we had this pub chat one time, and he started talking about like what day at work could be the best possible day at work. And so we started just thinking about all of this stuff, and he came out with pro golfing, and he said like he wasn't a golfer, and he was like, imagine being someone like Tiger Woods, right? Pro golfer, you're an athlete, you're in tip-top shape, but your actual athletic job is kind of, I want to say relaxed. It is compared to physically relaxing compared to somebody like you know, imagine you're a sprinter or something, or a marathon runner. You know, it's different thing, right? And it was like, just imagine you doing that. So you're going out, you're playing golf, you're like kicking everybody's ass on the golf course, winning loads of big awards, earning loads of cash. Everyone thinks you're brilliant, and then you go home to your massive house with your supermodel wife and your sports car, and just think maybe I'll do it again next weekend. It's like, what a lovely day at work, like strolling in the sunshine. And so I got thinking about it. My version of that was it was working. It was a production thing. It would have been working on probably a really popular comedy TV show where the core people become very good friends. The best analogy I came up with was Seinfeld. So imagine you're like writing them. Imagine you're someone like Larry David, right? You've created this show. It's a huge hit. You're sort of coming into like season 4, maybe. The numbers are really starting to pick up. You've got this group of people who are really smart and intelligent, and their main job is trying to make everybody laugh as much as possible. And that's your job. And everyone's starting to earn really good money from doing it. Yeah. I just think that would just be so fun as a, as a creative endeavor, as a job. So that was where I came out. It was like being right in the middle of like a big hit TV show where everybody's friends. It's my idealistic dream. So yeah, I mean, trying to get to that point. Yeah. It's nice if you can be friends with people. Like, it's not always possible to be. There's a couple of different things about movies. Some people think, like, I've heard a lot of like big actors talk about this. They'll talk about how they thought, like, when they were going to do a movie, everyone's going to become best friends and everyone's going to stay in touch forever, and because they all did a movie together, it was the most exciting, fun thing ever. And the truth is, some people are like that, some people aren't like that, and you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that completely. Okay, so are you working on any film stuff at the moment?
I am working on film stuff at the moment, yes. But guess what? I can't tell you anything about it. It's got to be top secret. I am. It's okay. So what happened with the release of Archive, right? What happened is, okay, when you make it, so Archive's an indie, right? It's an independent movie. When you're making an indie, the process that you go through is you make your movie and then you've got to figure out a way to get it into the cinemas, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're in a good position, what will happen is you're able to do a bit of business known as pre-sales. So apologies if I'm talking about egg sucking here, but in case anyone doesn't know this is how it works. So what pre-sales are is you basically do a deal before you've made your film with a distribution company, and the deal is we'll give you a chunk of money and we will put that in our cinemas in these territories. And the whole world's split up into different territories. Usually they're done by language. And the whole world's split up. And then each territory has businesses whose job it is to acquire movies, to buy them, do pre-sales deals, and have products that they can put in cinemas. So the idea is they basically buy the rights to the film in their territory under certain conditions.
Yeah.
And it's great because a lot of movies use pre-sale money to actually finance the production of a movie. So pre-sales can be very good. So Archive was funded largely through pre-sales, and we sold out. We went through a process called selling out. Now, what that means is you've sold the movie to every territory in the world. There's no one left to sell to. Which is great because it means you've maxed out your budget and the money you can get from that. And it also means that you've got theatrical release globally, which is not easy to do for an indie. I was very proud of that. And so we finished the movie it was like February 2020. We finished the movie and we were going to do the premiere at South by Southwest. We had all of our invitations. I had my itinerary for all my like 7 days of press that I was going to be doing out there. There's all kinds of things. It was like opening up with a morning TV segment on Fox News, which I just thought was hilarious. It's like, oh my god, I'm going to be on telly in America. This is amazing. We were like 6 days from flying out to South by out in Austin, and COVID lockdown started and the festival got cancelled. And so that was the beginning of COVID. And so my little sci-fi movie that was supposed to be in cinemas all around the world, like literally everywhere, it became a streaming dribble out in July 2020 with no advertising, no nothing, just there it goes. It's one of the, what it was like back then. Everybody was like starting to finish Netflix. We'd had the Tiger King. We'd been going through the whole big. We'd had Squid Games, I think, at that point. Everybody was just sat watching streaming. Yeah. And so I didn't get my global theatrical release, which was, I could beat myself up about this, but I consider myself fortunate we got the movie finished. Like, we just got the film finished. Like, if we'd have been halfway through post-production, probably when the lockdowns hit, we would have probably just ended up being unable to complete the film and just become like an insurance claim.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So at least I got the film finished. But
yeah,
having said that, a couple of things did happen during that period that were great. We got to #1 on Apple Movies. We got to. It's funny because when these things happen as a director, I only really find out about things when people tell me. So people at the production office, they scour the internet for this stuff. People at Universal that acquired it, they've got people that look for all of this stuff. And when you're in that kind of release period, you tend to get sent things. So it'll be like, oh, look, there's a little roundup of like press that's appeared. And so I get sent things, and it's like, holy shit, we're like #1 on like Apple Movies. That's great. We started like appearing everywhere. In America, they closed most of the cinemas, but they did rejuvenate the whole concept of drive-in cinemas.
yeah.
All the theatrical was in pretty much in America was in drive-in theaters, and we got to #2 in the American theatrical charts, which I'm so proud of. It's like that is going on my gravestone, even though it was during lockdown and in driving theaters. It's like #2 in America. It's like I'm just some guy from Yorkshire, It's like I'll take it. So thank you, America. I appreciate you over here.
Okay, so you can't tell us anything about anything you're working on at the moment.
Okay, what can I tell you? All right, so I've got 2 sci-fi films and I've got a horror film. Right now, what happened? Okay, after when you're working as a film director, right, especially when like your first directorial movie comes out, you're just getting ready for the next one, right? You're like, come on, let's go. I'm a film director now. Next film, let's go. And obviously, lockdown killed all of that. The only production that was being done back then, pretty much, was the virtual stuff, like The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
On the volume stages, and so that was coming through as a technology at the time. I mean, largely abandoned now. I mean, it's not honestly not great filmmaking technology. Very good for certain things, but not for making like a movie. It's a special effects tool. I mean, it's really good technology, but you don't want to go and shoot a whole movie in one of those. So, what was I saying then? So I've just been writing. So I've got like 5 movies ready, and now it's like let's just get some of these things made. But the whole industry is just recalibrating. Like it never stopped changing since COVID, and everyone's waiting for it to settle down, and it keeps changing into a new thing. And what everybody wants now is a $500,000 horror movie like Obsession that can make $350 million, whatever it's at now. And it's like, I mean, wouldn't that be nice? It's the same kind of thing I saw back in the day with Blair Witch. You get a $10,000, was it, movie, and it makes 150 million, and everybody just goes, "Hey, let's just spend 10 grand and make 150 million. Like, let's take that gamble." I mean, to be honest, I think it's probably like if you look at what like a studio might be doing. Say if I was running a studio, right? So say you've got a studio and you're putting out, you're obligated to take these big risks, right? Everything's like a big risk. So they're playing like high stakes casino, and every couple of rolls is like betting the farm. They're spending 150, 200 million on a movie, another 200 million on marketing. They've got to clear $500 million before they're really in profit. So if you're going to play those, if you're going to gamble those odds, right, instead of putting out 200 million a movie a year, excuse me, let's learn to speak English. Instead of putting out 200 million movies a year, and then never mind how much you have to spend marketing and all of that, and just concentrate on production budgets. How about this, right? How about making 4 $200 million movies if you absolutely have to, and make 400 $500,000 movies? Get filmmakers out there, give them a shot. Go. I mean, YouTube's a hot thing at the moment. Round up the YouTubers that have got some numbers, give them something that's got some kind of viral internet clout behind it, and off you go. They should have like whole departments that are doing this stuff, if you ask me.
I think, I mean, I think that at the moment, because of things like Backrooms, there are some of the big studios are starting to look at uh, YouTubers and viral videos and seeing about how they can expand those and make them into full-size movies. My worry
It's the
is,
thing is about the thing about this that I have a bit of a problem with though. It's that kind of like, oh yeah, we can do that thinking. It's not that usually when something's big, it's because someone just did it. It's like A24 like took a real punt on Ken Parsons, and good for them, good for everybody. I love the Backrooms. I thought it was a fantastic movie. It hit me in all the kind of weird spots that I like. I
yep,
just loved it. I love a bit of animal horror. I love all that stuff. And I thought they nailed it so much. Like it could have so easily just slid sideways and become some generic whatever. And fair play to everybody involved. I absolutely love that movie. Um, Obsession, like, you know, it's a great movie. It's not like one of my all-time favorite movies, but it's so well done. It's such a great idea. It's so cool that so many people love it, and it's just so great. It's generating so much buzz and interest, and everybody's doing really well out of it. I think that's
yeah.
fantastic. Um, but those two movies both came from those guys doing their own thing. I mean, Backrooms came from Ken Parsons spending 4 or 5 years on his YouTube channel. You can't just click your fingers and emulate that, you know. So, you know, by all means, give it a go. I mean, it is kind of what my advice just was to these guys. So, really, you know,
But
thanks for listening.
it's
Good
it's
luck.
a thing that happens in the film world and used to happen a lot in the music industry, which is you get somebody comes up with an idea that is successful, and so every company looks for, I don't know, let's say, back in the 60s it would be, we want to find the next Beatles, so we'll sign everybody who comes out of Liverpool, or we
Everyone with
want to
a
find,
yeah,
after Blair Witch, we want a found footage. So
well,
there
look
was
at
it,
this. Steve Jobs does this.
yeah.
Now every phone looks like an iPhone.
But the thing is that what you tend to find then is you get a lot of watered down versions of the original that are nowhere near as good and nowhere near as successful. And then everybody starts saying that it's all rubbish. So even if
That's the
somebody
problem.
does put out a good
I,
one, it gets lost.
this is the thing. It's like you're going to get all kinds of like knockoff stuff. It's like, just who cares? Just keep going. Don't do it a little bit, get cynical and give up.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Keep going. Like, keep digging. You want treasure, dig. Like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
congratulations, diamond near the service. You know, service. You want to, if you want to keep finding treasure, like dig, roll your sleeves up, get dirty.
Absolutely. Okay, so you got films that you've got written that you want to go out and make and all that kind of thing. You're still working on doing stuff for games and things like that. I'm not sure what you're working on apart from the one you were talking about. What was that?
Star Citizen.
Star Citizen. Yeah, I don't know what else you may be working on as far as that goes. So, where would you like to go in the future? Are you looking to get into making, directing and writing more of your own films?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get all these scripts made. I got some well, speaking modestly of myself, I got some bangers on here. It's like there's a lot. There'll be loads of people out there like me that have got some stuff that they're really into, that they really know can click with an audience. One of my the movie that I want to do next, the idea was it was a step up movie. So Moon was like 2.5 million quid, Archive was like 3.5. You know, the idea is now I do like the normal route. The historical route would be my next movie should be a 15-20 million dollar movie. If I can pull that off and keep everybody happy and make everybody money and people enjoy it, then I get to do a big movie. That
Yeah,
should be the route. But that's all broken now. So the movie that I wrote next, I wrote straight away after I wrote during lockdown, like straight away. That was supposed to be my 15-20 million dollar movie. So I could do it for 7 or 8, to be honest, because I know I have to do a lot of things myself. I've set up my own VFX team. All this stuff's being explored at the moment. But the trick is, as a filmmaker, if you want to do anything over 500,000 quid, you have to have a name attached to it for the marketing people.
yeah,
And so you're not doing anything until you've got the attention of somebody. And so the reason why I haven't got a film made yet is because I haven't being able to penetrate the agent barrier to talk to talent. And you're only allowed to talk to one person at once. And so I'll hit up an agent. It's like I'll, pick a big actor. That could be anybody. Pick a name. I'm trying to think of a name that isn't somebody I talk to because I'll sound daft. Pick a big actor. Who's a big actor? Tom Cruise. You want to talk to Tom Cruise. You want Tom Cruise in a movie. Good luck. Yeah. Like the amount of gatekeeping that goes on. I'm sure he'll take a call from Christopher Nolan any day of the week. He'll talk to Tarantino. I'm sure Edgar Wright can get him on the phone. There's a group of people that could get Tom Cruise on the phone. Gavin Rothery, like, it's just not going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that. The agent just goes, okay, put it on the pile, and you got to sit and wait.
Yeah.
How long do you wait? I mean, if you think 6 months is a short time, I would have to blow your mind by saying it's not. The longest I've gone being ignored is 10 months. And then I'm like, all right, forget this. We're pulling the approach. 10 months of just not getting an email back. And you don't, honestly, the reality is you don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Did he read it? Did he hate it? Did it just go straight in the bin? Did anyone pass anything to anybody? How many layers does it have to go through? You have no idea what happened. So it's very easy to get cynical because all you know is nothing happened. You get no feedback. You get no general feedback on how you might modify your approach to have more success to getting in contact with someone next time. Nothing. And so the only way that things really get done is people already know people or happen to be right next to somebody. Honestly, your networks in filmmaking are just everything. And I'm still working on everyone's always working on theirs. But, if you look at any film that gets made, it always sounds really easy. Right now we've got the press going on for the Odyssey and everybody's like, oh yeah, Chris Nolan dropped a script through and I just read it. And I didn't even need to read it. I just got straight on the phone, called him directly. I was like, yeah, Chris, I'm in. And that's a conversation going on between everybody on that film, basically. It's like Matt Damon and Christopher Nolan, like the big creative, famous brains in the middle of it all getting it done, the engine. And that's wonderful. Amazing job. Christopher Nolan can get hold of Matt Damon anytime he wants. Matt Damon can get hold of Christopher Nolan anytime he wants. What a wonderful world. And when those people get together, that's how you get massive films like The Odyssey.
Yeah.
But if you're not someone who can just ring someone up, and the thing is too, I've got agents, it doesn't make much difference because everything just goes on people's desks. So I get my agents to contact people and things go on people's desks. And I'm repped by CAA, right? They're the biggest agency in the world. And I used to think that they're all in the same office, right? And they're all just across the corridor from each other. And I used to imagine they'd just be like, you send an email, they get a script, they'd read it, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, this is cool. And they'll just wander over the corridor into the other guy's office that's representing the actor, and they'll just be like, haha, check this out. Slam it down on the desk. It's like, read this and get your boy on it. This is going to be hot.
Yeah.
Reality is that only works if you're already famous. It's wild how I have a really lovely friend who's a producer that we worked with out in Budapest, and he describes Hollywood as being a whole bunch of people trying not to do any work.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind because, if you're working as a creative, like you're, like generating material and stuff, it's the complete opposite. You just want to get everything done. Like you've got filmmaking has like a sort of an almost like psychotic energy to it where like you feel like if you don't get your film made, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so getting caught up in these kind of loops is really trying. But at the end of the day, it's all you can do. So that's why anyone who's wondering why you haven't had anything else from me since archive, and it's because of all of this. I'm just caught up in these chats all the time. And honestly, again, like most filmmakers, I'm sure, writer-directors, I mean, they'll be generating material like me the whole time. And so you end up with like a backlog of scripts. And it's like, this is all there. Like, things have been rewritten. I've had like, trusted friends, like editors and things, like reading things and feeding in notes and, going through the process. So it's not just me sat here by myself, like with dreams, although that is at the middle of it. I've got a producer that I work really closely with. I've got my agents out in LA. I've got You know, my creative team family that I've been building, that includes like, you know, everybody needing to make a film basically. Like some of my best friends are like editors and DOPs and stuff. It's like all that stuff's there. It's the finance. And what I've learned with the finance is that there used to be quite a lot of money out there for this kind of stuff. And similarly, in the games industry, there used to be quite, I don't say easy, it used to be a lot easier to set up an independent game studio if you had some clout behind you. So if you worked on a big game at a big company and you left and took a few people with you, you could get venture capital money to set up a game studio, and people would take a punt on you and get a demo together and try and get a publishing deal. Whereas now that's almost impossible. And I've got a really good friend of mine who's going through this at the moment. He's been in that process for about 18 months now, and he's still not managed to close it. And what we're all finding is that all the money right now is tied up in AI.
Yeah.
So all the venture capital now is in AI. So all the money that would have been making, I'm speaking broadly, but all the money that would have been funding like indie movies, and all the money that would have been funding indie games now, it's all caught up in AI. No one's getting a return off it. So all the money's tied in. It's over there parked. And that's kind of where we are right now. So yeah, it's a incredibly strange time. There's still people out there funding projects, but everything feels like it's gone down a couple of tiers. Like there are companies out there that used to, like I meet these people all the time. You know, there'll be companies out there that used to regularly make, even like smaller companies, but they regularly make $3, $10, $12 million movies a year. You know, relatively small companies in the big scheme of things, but definitely the kind of people who want to be talking to. And now they're making like $3 million movie a year.
Yeah. I've got to ask, I mean, as somebody who has worked a lot in computers and doing computer graphics and that kind of thing, as well as in film and that sort of thing, I mean, AI is a very divisive thing at the moment. Everybody's got an opinion on it and that sort of thing. How do you see AI as in like the future of the creative industry?
I don't know. These tools are wild. I mean, I keep abreast of it all because I don't want to be put out of a job.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to know what these tools are doing. I know producers out there right now that are looking to do AI movies for $1 million, $2 million. Everything's shot in a warehouse. You film everything you need to shoot, and then everything's just visually replaced with a layer of AI to change the way it looks. Things like that. I mean, you can't ignore these tools. If you look at the development over the last like 3 years, the classic video generation of Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah.
I mean, that tells you everything you need to know, like how that changed over like 3 years, I think it is. It's just wild. So honestly, I don't know. I do know that, you know, AI is never going to take away the intention. And when you look at anything great, it always comes from somebody. So all these things always come from somebody who can't not do it. So you look at something like Star Wars, like that came from George Lucas first and foremost, and he assembled a team of geniuses and everybody contributed. But you can't take George Lucas out of that equation.
Yeah.
And until you've got Star Wars, you can't just make Star Wars out of thin air. And that's what the AI can't do. It can't make things out of thin air.
Yeah.
You know, it's a remix machine. It's all some version of remix machines. So, I mean, the technology is super interesting. I'd love it if they weren't destroying the planet. I hate the way that the companies seem to have gobbled up all the global finance and stopped everybody else from doing anything. I hate the legal stuff about how they've just scraped everybody's IP and then used that to make money. That's just something deeply unfair about that and weird. But they're like massive, big Silicon Valley tech companies, right?
Yeah.
The scruples behind it are really bad. The technologies, what word do I use to describe it? I nearly said fascinating, but that's not true. I don't actually find it fascinating. I find it very interesting, but not fascinating, because once you sort of understand a little bit about how these things are working underneath the bonnet, as much as we're obliged to understand it, it's actually pretty, I don't want to say basic because they're like super complicated, but I don't know. It's not magical.
Yeah.
There's nothing magical about this stuff. It's quite soulless and dead. And I don't know. But then as a filmmaker, I'm sat here and it's like, okay, so I'm calling myself a filmmaker. Reality is, Archive came out in 2020. That's like 6 years ago now. Actually, it was July 2020. Yeah, like it was nearly July the 20th, it was. Okay, well, we're 4 days away from that being 6 years right now. But I can access these tools. Like, should I make my own AI movie? I could just get on with it. I don't have to ask anyone's permission. No one's going to stop me. I can do it all myself, full creative control. And if I get it done, I might make some money out of it. Like, why shouldn't I do that? Like, all like logic, if you take the emotion out of it, just look at logic as a filmmaker, how many barriers stand in your way towards telling a story. And you look at where we are with AI, you could say that all those barriers are gone. And it's just pick up the tools and use them. And the ethics of it's just awful because, like I said, the ethics of the tools is just awful. And at the end of the day, I guess if you're somebody that will do that, you just will do it no matter what. And if you're not somebody that will do it, you just won't do it. But you know, as filmmakers, you're allowed to ask yourself, like, why shouldn't you do that when everything else is against you and there's so many just blockers? So it might be the difference between you being able to make a film or just not being able to make anything your whole career. I mean, why shouldn't you make that choice?
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from. I think my problem with it is the fact that I can't remove the emotional thing of the fact that it kind of like it is soulless. It's not creative in a human sense. And more than that, one of my worries is the fact that there have been people, and I interviewed an actress earlier this year who is undergoing a court case at the moment because of the fact that a company have effectively stolen her physical look for an AI generated actress.
There's going to be loads of this kind of stuff.
So, you know, I think the morals of it are so awful that I can't possibly get behind using it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I don't like all the environmental concerns either. I've got to say,
no,
yeah, there's a lot with it that's wrong. I don't know. We're living in strange times.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought, like a few years ago, that you could just type something called a prompt into a bar and get photorealistic video back?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. Okay, well, thank you for being on the show, for your opinions on everything, and for your insights into filmmaking. I'm sure there are a lot of people who watch our show who are filmmakers and are interested in what goes on behind the scenes, who will be interested in what you've had to say.
And I've just been talking. I've just been talking business, haven't I? For like the whole thing. I apologise for that.
No, it's perfectly fine.
Behind the curtain, daft business of movies and why things take so long.
No, I mean that's fine. I mean, you know, the main show is just me and another guy giving our opinion on other people's films. So you know, having somebody giving a proper insight into what goes on when it comes to making a proper movie is quite interesting.
I didn't give you any of my Shaun of the Dead stories or anything.
No, I was going to say that you'd also been on the crew for Shaun of the Dead. So what was that experience like?
Phenomenal. That was in like 2003 when that happened. So that's pre-Moon. So that was me and Duncan at home going through this process of just kind of getting into everything. And a friend of mine, a guy I went to college with, fellow illustrator, he saw, this is like early internet days. He saw a thing on a website and it basically said, do you want to be a zombie in a movie? Contact this email address. So he hit me up and he was like, should we go and be zombies in a movie? I was like, yes, we should. So we sent emails over and we got an audition and we didn't know what it was. It was just come and be a zombie. So we went to a place called, I think it was an audition room. It was called the Chinese Laundry in Soho in London. We went there and it's just some rooms that the production hired. I remember there was 4 people or 6 people behind trestle tables and like 40 people in the room. It was just like a white and empty room. And they basically went, okay, everybody, be zombies, go. And so everybody's shuffling around going, you know, doing the whole bit. And, you know, I'm a huge zombie fan. Like I grew up with the Romero stuff. And, you know, I thought I'll try and chuck a little bit of Bub in there because he's always the OG zombie with a bit more, right?
Yeah.
So instead of just wandering around, it's funny as well because it was one of those things where I remember thinking, should I go Return of the Living Dead and give it a bit of the whole brains thing? I was like, no, I'm going classic Romero. I'm not moving too fast. Do you know what I mean? I'm like setting out on my saying, Bub, we're going Bub. Bub and a bit of Peter the Pilot after he turns into a zombie in the original Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
So I was, so did that. And then they sort of let us shuffle around for 5 minutes. And then they were like, okay, everybody stop. You, and you. Stay here. Everybody else, see you later. And I got picked. So I was a zombie in Shaun of the Dead. And then, well, we still didn't know it was Shaun of the Dead. It was just a zombie film. And then they said, okay, this is going to be happening at nights. So just be aware you're going to be doing nights. And we're like, all right, great. So then I got a call and we're out to New Cross and we were shooting all the stuff on the exterior of the Winchester pub. And so we're all zombied up and there's a crowd of about 150 zombies and all these like silly shenanigans were going on because it's quite a rough part of town and there's all these like kids on mountain bikes sort of circling us looking for prey and stuff, and we're all wandering around looking like we've just been in car crashes, and zombies are wandering off the set and going to the local shops and like buying drinks and crisps, and people are calling ambulances, all kinds of like silly things going on. But it was really fun, and I got pulled out of the zone. Oh yeah, so we were shooting the stuff outside the Winchester. The first night of shooting, we were all being corralled at the end of the street, and then they were all setting up filming, and we saw it was the Space guys. We saw Simon and Nick.
All right.
And they were outside the pub, and they were just sat at the pub tables, just waiting. And we were like, "Oh, look, it's the guys from Space." It was like they must be doing a space movie. We're like, "That's so cool! We're in a space movie." And at the time, purely by coincidence, I had like bleach blonde peroxide short hair, and I looked a lot like Simon Pegg. But the weird thing was, I was also working as a comic artist, which is what his character does in Space. But that was like actually my life. And it was funny when I came to know Space, the reason why I watched it was because people said there was a TV show with a guy who was like me, and I had to watch it. And that was how I found out about it. But yeah, I got pulled out by one of the producers and asked to double for Simon.
Oh,
so
right.
I was like, yeah, totally. So it was funny because it was over a summer. And I was running a team. I had my own company at the time, and we did outsourcing for the games industry. And we were making the vehicles for the Xbox SKU of Grand Theft Auto 3 as like an outsourcing. And I had a team I had set up, and I was running that team. And it was really hard work, and I wanted a little break. So my summer holiday was basically treating myself and going and working on Shaun of the Dead for a few weeks. So I did a bunch of zombie stuff, and then I got pulled out to double as Simon. And I was pulled into the middle of production, and I was like, they were using me as like a stand-in. So I was basically like a duplicate Simon whenever they were all those guys were so tired. They were like sleeping on crash mats at the back of the studio and stuff. So they'd get everything set up with me and do what they could with me. Then they'd swap me out, put Simon in, do it for camera, and then he'd go off and crash out again, and they'd swap him out with me again, and we'd keep going.
Cool.
But it was really cool. I had 2 days, and I got to, the bit where he shoots his mum, I got to cuddle Penelope Wilton for Winton for 2 days. So Edgar Wright, I know, you won't remember me for any of this, but I owe a big thank you to Edgar Wright for putting me in a position where I got to cuddle Penelope Winton for 2 days. That was a rare treat.
There are worse things.
Yeah, she's so lovely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And as I say, thank you for being on the show and for everything else. Everybody out there, I will put links to Gavin's IMDb page and website so that you can keep an eye on things that are going on in his life and career. And until next time, thank you very much and goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
The Sciforror Film Podcast.